so great to finally meet you.
It's so good to reconnect with you as well. Happy to be here.
Really glad. So thank you for joining us on Career Break Exchange. We want to make the journey of career breaks easy for everybody at any journey, any point of their journey. So we have those who are considering it, those who are just curious, those who are actively planning, those who are coming
Mhm.
back from a career break or want to enjoy it, and those who probably want to go back for part two. And we realized that for career breaks, it's a different journey for different people, but it's a lot to learn in every journey. So we are so happy to have you here. I'm also deeply excited, if that were a term, because you didn't only just go on a career break and come back to what you were doing. You literally switched careers. And let me say, you boldly switched careers. I'm sure our
I
listeners
don't think at that time I felt I was being bold, but
and
yeah, I'm happy with what I did.
Yes. So, I mean, can't wait to dig into this story. I have been dying to meet you talk about this. So, probably more
I'm happy to
excited than
be
people listening. But let's get into it. Please tell us more about yourself.
here. So I am Dr. Med Adwoa Shumwa Amponta, but I also answer to Dr. Med Adwoa Chimberima. I'm currently a health economist working as a consultant with a multinational company. I handle the health financing and human resources for health portfolio. I have over 12 years of experience in the field of medicine, anesthesia, and health economics, and I've worked in the field of health insurance a bit as well. Outside of work, I would say I'm quite passionate about traveling.
Mm.
I enjoy food. You can call me a foodie, and I'll answer to that because I enjoy tasting delicacies. I believe in God. I believe in hard work and integrity. And I think that these actually influence the way I approach challenges in life.
Mm.
And I'm actually looking forward to sharing my journey with you. This journey of a career switch, this journey of a career break, and this journey of finding me.
Oh, I love that finding you. And then speaking of foodie, I'm actually I'm an unapologetic
Oh,
foodie, and I was telling someone that I can't imagine that we would. Like there was no food for us to eat and enjoy and
hey.
savor. Like just imagine a world where you are walking and you're imbibing nutrients from the air. I mean, how? Like it has to
There's
be
a thought of
tasty.
scares me.
So it's nice. It's nice to flow with you on this level. I think it will make my job easier for me today. Um, so please tell us what informed your career break? How did you approach it? The decision to switch industries during that time?
So where do I start from? What inspired me? So I had started off as a trainee specialist in anesthesia. At
Hmm.
that point, I had already bagged a diploma in anesthesia, and I had a few other months to go before coming out as a specialist.
Hmm.
And as part of the requirement, I was asked to do a 3 month rotation at the Department of Medicine. So then, if you understand the way anesthesia works, we basically ensure that you are prepared well for surgeries, and during the surgeries, you are comfortable to go through your surgery without being aware, without any pain whatsoever.
Hmm.
And for some of the processes, we are dealing with the machines, we are dealing with the patients, and then we are making sure that you are comfortable throughout. So having switched to medicine where it's more of patient interaction, you taking a lot of history from them and interacting with them and talking to them, I realized that that was more of me. My soul just lit up. I was just happy to be there. So after 3 months, when I needed to come back to anesthesia, I started struggling. I'm struggling in the sense that I wasn't as motivated to go to work day day in, day out anymore. I'll go to the car park. I was driving from a far away place to work. So then usually I'll go there pretty early. I'll get to the car park. I'll probably stay in my car for about 30 minutes. Not sure whether I really wanted to be in theater that day. And that wasn't the way it was 3 months prior. So then
Wow.
I realized then that there was something off. And for me, I am quite in tune with myself. So when those things happen, I usually will want to get down to it and find out exactly what is causing this. I
Mhm.
was digging deeper and deeper, and I couldn't find an answer. And at that point, when I realized I wasn't feeling 100%, my first inclination was to see how I can step out of where I was, reevaluate, and see how I can actually go back to work. So initially, I just wanted to step out for a while and then rethink how I was
Mhm.
feeling about everything and then go back. At that time, I was about maybe 6 months shy of the exam. So going to seek for that permission from my supervisors was difficult. Trying to explain that to my family that I'm just feeling off. I just don't feel like doing the anesthesia anymore. I realized that it wasn't just medicine in totality, but it was just a specialty I was doing then that I felt wasn't really for me at that point.
Wow.
Trying to explain this to people was very difficult, but I was sure at that point that I didn't want to continue with anesthesia anymore. At least I wanted to take some time off and rethink this. So I guess the inspiration to actually step out was because I was keen on finding me, finding why I was feeling this way, getting answers for the way I was feeling at that point, and trying to find out what really can connect to my soul, as in finding that which works for me. Then I went on that break. At the
Please
time, the
continue. I'm
mind,
in awe, but please continue.
I went on that break, and during that break, I'll tell you, I didn't prepare much for this break.
Mm,
Because, as I said, it just happened. I just come from the rotation. I was back and felt that way. In about a month or two, I had taken a leave of absence from work for a year without salary. So then I needed to do something. So I started with something small. So I joined, a friend invited me to a hospital and asked me to assist there. I
okay.
was going to take more like a little, a little over just half of what my salary was initially,
Mhm.
but I was willing to take it. It
Mhm.
was a long distance from my house, but I was willing to take it because at that point, I just knew I didn't want to go back to work, but I needed to find something to do along the way. I did this for 1 year. By the time the year was over and I was required to go back to Kolebu, I had made a decision to make a career switch. And then at that point, I was like, what do I need to do? So then, if you ask me what really inspired me to do this, it was only to find me. And I
Mm.
did find it when I was out there in the field, trying to figure out what had happened earlier on. And then on my way back, I decided that no, I'm not going back to anesthesia, but I'm going to find something else to do.
Wow, wow, wow. Adra, I see the way you are calmly saying this as if it's a matter of fact to just get up and find yourself. And there's some key things I'm picking from what you just said. I mean, that feeling of being lost. Someone said when you taste sweetness, it's hard to go back to what you thought was sweet. Um,
Exactly.
and
Exactly. That's
and
the principle.
and wow. Honestly, let's just say you've left me speechless, and that's quite hard to do. Wow. So, I mean, if there's anyone listening who is feeling that way, I mean, maybe you should take a cue from Adwoa and just consider. I mean, we're not saying jump off and go on a break, but maybe you should just consider where you are and do that introspection for Adwoa.
Don't agree.
Going on that
Yeah.
break. And the fact
Yeah.
that you took the pay cuts, and even you found something. I mean, some people jump and go on a career break and don't find something. So I'm really happy that you did. Wow, 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 wow. At this point, I will be mean. I will be mean to our listeners. This is just like you should see my goosebumps. And then go on a quick break and come back. And then we will dive even deeper into this. For those of you who probably just tuned in, this is Career Break Exchange, and we are happy to let you meet Adwoa, a career breaker, also a career switcher, and listen more about her journey from anesthesia to being a health economist. So we'll talk to you very soon.
Okay.
Hi, Adwoa. Welcome back from the break, everyone. Um,
Yeah.
I'm still, if there was a word, suffering from the goosebumps Adwoa gave me. That was such a wow, an interesting story, and we can't wait to unpack that a bit more. Yeah. Can I just ask, did you do this in Ghana? I know you said Kolebu, but just to be sure.
Hey, right here in Ghana, I
Wow.
did it in Accra, and this should be somewhere 2017.
Wow, even before the whole pandemic, where people,
Yep.
people's mindsets have shifted from it. That was a that was some bold
And
move.
I found a job during the pandemic.
This is, I mean, if people don't think miracles are possible, they should come and listen to this one. This is
Which,
like you got up and created the miracle and made it work. So definitely can't wait to unpack this. So tell us, during your career break, how did you go about upskilling yourself and getting ready for the next move? You did say that you took, at the end, you knew you didn't want to go back and you had to decide what you wanted to do. So if you could tell us a bit more about how you prepared yourself for a successful transition, from where you were, and uh, just a little
hmm,
bit. You remind me of the person who leaves their fiance, goes to visit someone, and then they fall in love. Like how, like you come back and you just feel like this, the joy is gone.
the joy is gone.
Wow. Please
Yeah.
tell us now that if you're talking about joy in the past, now that you know that the joy is gone and you have to move, how did you
Yeah.
transition, and why did you choose what you're doing now?
Yes. So as I said, so during that period, when I stepped out, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do next.
Hmm.
But a good friend of mine offered me some support because this happened was so random. It was unplanned. And I didn't have any savings to fall on because at that time, me and my husband had started a building project. So you know how you put everything into a building and it's not even done yet, but yes, still all your finances are actually in that. So
Mhm.
when I stepped out, I didn't have that and I had no plan whatsoever. So when I stepped out, a friend reached out to me and said, "Do you know what? I can't pay you anything close to what Kolebo would have, but why don't you come over and come and support me in my new adventure as well?"
Hmm.
When I went there, she was offering occupational health
Okay.
to us in Tema. So
Oh.
I joined her during that period. Whilst there, I got an opportunity to do some auditing. And I tell you, when you're on a career break,
Mm-hmm.
idea you get ideas. When you know that you need to just find something doing during that break, you'll be amazed as to what openings are actually or opportunities are actually out there for you. And
Mm-hmm.
now you are at liberty to take on as much as you want because you're on a break anyways.
Mm.
So the got the opportunity to do auditing with the National Health Insurance Authority.
Oh, nice.
And that was when I fell in love with health financing. So
Oh.
by the time the year was over, I had already decided on where I was going, whether I was doing occupational health or I'll do health financing. The
Mm.
good part is that during this period, you probably need a bit of counseling as well.
Mm.
So I had people I could talk to who knew what I was going through and were holding my hand sort of and saying that we are not so sure what you are doing, but we are there for you. And I think that was enough for me. So these people were actually following up with me, encouraging me and asking me, so what is your next step? What are you doing next? So I did share with one of them who had become a very close friend to me,
Mm-hmm.
um, Prof. Yorsing. When we spoke about it, he said, okay, I'll tell you what, there are more career opportunities with being a health economist. So instead of doing occupational health, I will encourage you to be a health economist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. So I invested time and resources to acquire a master's in health economics and
Okay.
health policy at the University of Birmingham. So
Mm.
then I had new knowledge, I had a new certificate. And during that period, I also joined some relevant associations. So that
Mm.
was the upskilling I needed. But beyond that, stepping out and coming down, I realized that now I was transitioning from being in a clinical setting to
Mm-hmm.
more of corporate
Mm.
administrative managerial role. And I didn't know much of that. So then I
Okay.
started reading around that,
Mm.
building myself how to be a manager because I didn't know how to be a manager. I
Mm-hmm.
was only a resident whilst I was in Kolebu, and I've
Oh.
only been a doctor. Yep. So maybe some managerial skills here and there, but I hadn't been able to actually look at what I had and say that this is the kind of leader I want to be, or this is the kind of person I am. So this is how I want to be seen and all that. So during that period, I started learning Excel right from I actually took a 2-week course in Excel just so I would appreciate how to work around Excel because I knew that was going to be required. I started looking at PowerPoints differently. I
Mm.
started doing a few courses here and there on how to use Word, how to use
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft PowerPoint, how to generate very attractive slides and all that. And all this I did just so that I could actually bring myself to speed, so that if I entered the field again, I'll be quite competitive.
Like another bombshell for me. Like I don't even know where to put my questions anymore. Wow, this is amazing because the break helped. And I think for you, it was already defined. You had a year to defer and come back if you wanted to. And you didn't even plan not to come back per se, but to look within. And with that, I love what you said about opportunities. I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of when they go on a career break, that they won't find opportunities. But I love
Oh,
what you
yeah.
said, that your mind actually suddenly becomes creative and sees things that probably your regular 9 to 5 or schedule, you'll be too busy to even think about those things.
Yeah, you will be.
You also mentioned the support. I mean, God bless your family, the people who supported you. I think, and when you said counseling, I mean, it may not have been formal, but I had a lot of people who were understanding, even though they didn't understand what you were doing. And
Yes.
I love that you enjoy the journey as well. Those are massive nuggets sitting right there. That we could even do 3 podcasts on. But that's amazing. And then the upskilling. I think you just didn't go and say, "Oh, I have a master's in health economy," and
Yeah,
that
that
was
was
it. You took the PowerPoint, you took the Excel, you took the manager, you read around. And when
I
you
read
said,
around.
I
Yes.
love Excel, I'm like, how did I learn it? I realized that it was part of my job. Things would come and would be in Excel, but for you, it wasn't part of your job as an
Oh,
aesthetist.
yeah,
So
it
you took
wasn't.
a few courses and stuff. So I mean, good on you. Well done. It's massive. Could you zero in? And I love the way you're actually quite a positive person already. Like I'm hearing a lot of positivity around the whole journey, but could you zero in on some challenges, how you overcame them,
Yeah.
and how it shaped you as well? Because I think challenges never really leave you the same, they leave you better.
Yes. So some of the challenges was, for instance, family.
Mm.
Eh, I had a pretty young family at that time, and leaving them for a year to pursue the master's
Mm.
in UK wasn't easy. Because at that time, I think my youngest child was 3 years
Wow.
and my oldest was then about 5. So leaving them with my husband with support from family, I mean, although I knew they were going to be taken care of, um, going away for that 1 year was difficult, very
Mm.
honest. So
Mm.
that break in itself is difficult. The other thing is that certainly having that change from clinical setting to that administrative setting, and then eventually to a multinational organization, you realize that there are some skill sets that you actually need to acquire beyond the certificate.
Mm.
And these are requirements for your new field. And sometimes when you are interviewing
Mm-hmm.
beyond the certificate, people are looking at your experience in that particular field.
Mm.
Having made that career change, you didn't have much of that experience for you to fall on. So
Mm.
then you have more like, yes, you may have the certificate and all, but you don't have the experience. And there's certainly a skills gap. The other thing is that when you have entered into a new field, we didn't have much of people you knew in that field. So then these are people in a different field altogether that you are not used to. So having not to have any network per se to fall on at that time was also quite challenging. And of course, when I stepped out of anesthesia,
Mhm.
although eventually I came to know why I had to stop the anesthesia, initially I didn't understand it myself, to be very honest. So that contention as to whether I have actually failed at something I had started
Mm.
was also something that I needed to work on. So that confidence to say that I did this, I stopped, I owned the decision, and I'm not ready to move on
Mm.
was a bit difficult for me. For a while, I had a friend who knew that whenever I came to Kolebo, I struggled because
Mm.
whenever I went to Kolebo, it was like a reminder of where I failed.
Mm.
Took a while for me to go back to the same place and feel different and say that this is a place where I made the biggest change of my life. And this is a place where I began to fly. I didn't feel like that until later on.
Wow. Wow. I should stop saying wow. Just in case I'm the only one being blown away by your story and how you are putting it. You've mentioned something that maybe a lot of people may not even want to talk about. That self-realization or that self-talk that you feel that something. I mean,
Mm.
some of us had classmates who were learning to be doctors, like 6 years of my life, and then for you, you've done six and residency, and like you just done this and put it in the bin, and like I'm going to do something else. So I really can connect with you when you say this is where I failed, and that whole what you said, working on yourself to transition from not this is where I failed, but this is where I made a decision and I started flying. I think we never know what's on the other side. People don't do well, others will with their career breaks and their career switches. Um, but good on you that you did, and good on you that you put in the work. Built new networks. Eesh, I cannot imagine the change. Luckily for me, I know a few doctors and I've switched industries before, not careers per se, but industries, and that was hard. And the humility to know that there is more beyond the certificate that you hold that you need to learn. And I think that'll be individual for everybody. You may be good at Excel, but there may be something else, maybe on finances that you have to study, or even how to talk to people, how to address
Exactly.
things in the boardroom.
When I went to National Health Insurance Authority, I was a senior manager there. And
Mm,
as I said, I had never really managed a team before.
mm,
Why was I required to do that? And there was a time when I will give them maybe more not assignment per se, but maybe there's a project and I'll assign certain rules to people.
mhm.
And at the end of the week, I'm going back for the results, and these results were not available. And then I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, oh, what is happening here? Eventually, I had to learn how to lead them, how to go back when I've delegated to
Mhm.
take feedback from them, go back and say that, oh, have you started? Are there any challenges along the way? Is there anything I can do to help? And actually give them timelines. At first, I'll just leave it open. Oh, I want this report, and that is it. But not
No
saying
deadline, nothing.
no deadline, nothing. And throughout the period as well, I'm not even asking you about it. So
Mhm.
there's no like, oh, I'm pushing you to do anything. So, I mean, apart from the skill sets, apart from the fact that I went there as a health economist at that point and I was equipped and knowledgeable to be in that field, I needed to learn these people's skills. And it took a
Mm.
while, but eventually I got it.
I love that you found the gap, you tried to close the gap, and you appreciated that it took a while. Some of us, I think when you're in a certain setting and you do things, you don't even realize you're learning it, and then you have it. So it's surprising to have a manager who doesn't know how to say timelines or something, and it's amazing that you pick that up and you
I did.
wow.
I
Yeah.
did. Did. And going back there, I
Mm,
mean, I was humble enough to say, I'm your senior manager, but I'm also here to learn from you.
mm,
So I took the first few weeks to just learn from how people were conducting themselves. Because there's also the cultural shock.
mm-hmm,
Every association have their own culture on how they see work and how they go about work. And the
mm-hmm,
clinical is different. So the culture at that authority is also different. And so is the culture at the multinational place as well. So sometimes you need a bit of, acclimatization, finding out what they do differently, how they see success, how they get their things done. And
mm-hmm.
this is goes way beyond your certificates or your qualification. You are there to learn as well. And that is one thing about me. Wherever I went, I made sure that I became the underdog. For the
Mm.
first weeks, I was just there to assimilate and learn, learning how they do their things so that I can fit in.
I can now understand why you're so successful. I mean, your learning spirit is remarkable. And it's, I think also because you moved from places that you were good at to places that you probably had no clue or had very little skills in. You were willing and humble to give yourself that period of acclimatization, that simulation period, that learning period, and then build on it and work with people. I think when you don't have anything, it's harder to be proud. And then when you are not proud to, the humility is easier to absorb and learn. So this is amazing. I would love to know, you've talked about some of your personal stories and you've talked about some of the strategies. I mean, allowing yourself to learn. And I think it would be really good for those who are going on, coming from a career break or just going switching, just that to be humble and learn about it. But if you could go a bit back, how did you actively leverage your network? How you told the story, it seemed like people were there to support you, but I don't know if everybody just said, "Hi, Adwoa, let me help you." How did you leverage your network from when you made that bold decision? Your children were young. There was a lot you did. I mean, you did like 2 stints here, you traveled, you came back, you moved, went for interviews. How did you leverage your network and your personal branding during this time to be able to go through it all? I mean, there are so many stages that you've said so far.
Yeah. So luckily for me, I'd had a lot of support and there were a lot of people in my network. I had great friends,
Mm-hmm.
friends like Adwoa, friends like Millicent, Mambi. They were always there for me.
Mm,
And I remember we would have long talks, especially me and Mambi, we would have long talks about what I was doing, what I needed to do, what my next step was. And having that was good for me.
mm,
My family, my husband, my kids, um, me trying to explain what was happening, the next step, what we are doing is what that means. Because it also meant that, for instance, we needed to put our building on hold because I was using some of the resources to further my education and all that. And everybody needed to understand that we were going to have to sacrifice a bit in
mm,
doing. The other thing was to use my network at anesthesia
mm,
because when I've been back, I've fallen. I mean, I've always connected to those friends for support because they were there for me when I decided to make that career change, and they continue to be there for me going forward. Um, when it comes to of my profession, for instance,
mhm,
um, I had to leverage on my networks, even
mm.
in finding a job, to be very honest.
Okay.
When I came back, it was through a discussion I had with somebody who led me to the very first job I had after school. That was the National Health Insurance Authority. So
Mm,
I had to leverage on that network to actually do that as well.
mm,
And even in the industry, I had continued, and when I started working at the National Health Insurance, I was blessed to be pushed to do a lot more than I was required,
mm,
which meant that I was being sent to conferences, I was being sent to workshops, and through that, I started making new connections
mm,
and building on that network. So within a very short period, my network had blown up. because now I didn't have just people in Kolebu or people in the medical field, but I had people within the National Health Insurance, the Ministry of Health, and its agencies. And when I transitioned to the multinational company, I realized that most of my works were actually going to be with the Ministry of Health and its agencies and the National Health Insurance. So I realized that if I didn't have these connections with them, this network wasn't even available. It would have been very difficult for me to achieve as much as I'm achieving at the multinational. So for me, I'm always building on my networks and leveraging on my professional networks to move on.
Wow.
I join associations, relevant associations, just so I can meet new people and be connected. In recent times, I had looked at my LinkedIn profile and other profiles to see how I can enhance those to also connect me to the world. So for me, I'm always networking. I don't do much social things like I used to do before.
Okay.
Most of the outings are related to work now, but I think that is only a stage. But wherever I go, I try to connect deeper. I try to connect more on something so that I can always leverage on that network later.
I love what you said about being intentional about networking. I mean, people go to conferences, they wait for the food, they listen to what they say, what they need to say. And then me, I love food. So when I go to conference, I'm looking out for that. I'll not lie. Bosses are not happy. But I love that you were intentional and you did not know when you would need these people. You did not know how you'll be useful to them or they'll be useful to you, but you were intentional about connecting with them, keeping a relationship with them some way, somehow. I want you to double click a little on that one, just maintaining the relationship, because a lot of people, networking is now a buzzword. For me personally, I used to hate the word networking. It used to be
Oh,
like politics for personal brand, but it's something we do, whether or not you actively do it or not, you are either doing it right or you're not doing it well or you are learning.
yeah.
How do you go from being an aesthetist with most of the people around you being an aesthetist and then now meeting new people? Like, how do you stay in touch and how do you make yourself relevant to them? If you could just touch on that briefly for those of us who want to learn more about networking, especially with relevance to being relevant during their career break and afterwards.
Yes. So my current work is such that I handle two portfolios. That's health financing and then human resources for health.
Okay.
With these two portfolios, it comes with a lot of activities. So as you rightly said, sometimes it's difficult for you to reach out to people so often. To say, hello, I met you here, do you remember, or anything. But what I've done is to make sure that when somebody needs information about health financing or HRH within the multinational space, they will remember me. As so I make my presence at every meeting relevant. I'll think through what you are saying, put on my critical thinking hat, and come up with something. I'll do follow-ups with people if it's required. I will support with resources which are within my means so that I always stay relevant to these people. And occasionally, when these professionals has transitioned to a much more had actually moved from just being professional to a personal space, I honor invitations. So for instance, if somebody who used to be in my professional space now sends me an invitation for a funeral, I am going to that funeral. Because at the end of the day, you also need to have what they call more like a goodness pot. You know, sometimes when you ask somebody for something, beyond the fact that they think it's within your professional means, for them to actually go out of your way to actually support you and do it, sometimes they also need to remember what other good you've done for them.
Yeah, we are
So I
human.
need to have a full goodness board so that when the person remembers, the person will say, oh, Adwoa asked me for that report. I must send it to Adwoa. Why? Because when someone died, I mean, this is Ghana. Somebody wants to be in your good book because you were able to attend to this, when they reach out that, oh, Adwoa, I needed this report immediately, you were able to support them. So that is it for me. I make sure that I am your click away when you say,
Mm,
I need this, and you
mm,
are sure that Adwoa will get it for you.
mm,
And because of that, I'm able to keep in touch with people. People realize that I'm reliable, they can count on me. And in my field, there's a lot of diplomacy which needs to be attached to the kind of work I do. Because this is a multinational company, this is UN. So then there's a lot that people will tell you that you need to find a way to keep.
mm,
So the fact that people see me as being not only resourceful, but somebody they can trust,
mm.
somebody of integrity. These things are important to me. And because of that, people will keep on coming back to that brand, Adwoa, because they know that she'll get the work done for them.
I love what you said about people know you for and I think either during the recording or earlier you had mentioned you someone of integrity, something you honor, and it's being true to yourself and making
Mm.
sure that whoever you are as a person is benefiting someone else. So you don't go like, let's network. I will need you in the future. It's more of how can I help? How can I
How
be
can I?
useful to you? Even if I don't say hello every Sunday or every year, people
Mm.
remember that I can call on Adwoa for. Like, I mean, right now we say health finance, we say health insurance. Like, already I'm like, okay, maybe one day I can call you for this or that.
Exactly.
And it's amazing that sometimes we don't realize how people are, what's the
Mm.
word? Unconsciously connecting the dots in their mind. Remember, we talked about food and like, yay, but
Mm.
unconscious and then honoring invitations. I think it's easy for us in this busy. I mean, I'm in Accra too, busy Accra to go like, oh, I can't go, oh, I can't come.
Mm.
Honoring invitations and showing up for others. So that is amazing. Adwoa, your story, me. Maybe one day we should go on a coffee date, then I can sit down without a time limit and just talk because there's so much in it. But even with what we've shared today has been amazing. 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 The support from your family, your network, and I love the way you're not shying away from the work you put in. You're not tooting it loudly, but you put in a lot of work. Hey, I do a lot of work has gone into not only your break, but your switch, and even from the national health to where you are now. It's a lot of work. So good on you and congrats. I mean, it's a lot you put in, and I respect that. If there
Thank you.
was, there's a lot. I try to run through a summary, but there's a lot that's been said. If there was one thing, just one thing you want everybody listening to this to remember, what would it be?
I will just reiterate something that my father, Mr. Kwekwen Shibosiako, once told me. He sent me a message and said that there are 3 A's:
Mm,
adopt, adapt, adjust. If you are conscious about doing these three, no matter what happens, you would learn to adjust to situations.
mm,
Whenever these things happen, go back to God and find out why. If it's in God's will, you are ready to go. Because in actual fact, all you need is God's blessing and God's grace to move on onto whatever you need to do.
mm,
Career breaks are good. Sometimes you actually need to just sit back a bit, look at where you are, look at it in a very positive lens, and say that this is what I want to continue doing. Or
mm,
this is a part where I say, okay, I've done this for 5 years, I've done this for 10 years. What next?
mm,
Don't be afraid to take these breaks. Do them as often as you can.
mm.
Whenever you feel like it, just sit back and do that. But don't do what I did. Plan.
And
Create a learning plan. What do I need to do during this period? What am I going to take away from this break? What do I do next? And stay positive and resilient.
mm,
Whatever your decision is, work at it, be positive, and know that once you've placed your will in God's will, He who has brought you to that particular position will see you through.
Thank you so much, Adwoa. Thank you so much. For those of you considering a career break, remember you need God's blessing on it. I mean, we will also be unapologetically religious on this call as well. Sometimes the timing is not just it, and sometimes we are too afraid and plan. And I hope you'll be able to join us on our career break exchange platforms to learn about it. Sometimes, too, as Adwoa said, you just need to take a break and be sure that you are where you should be and you don't have to move. But take that time out and take as many breaks as you would. Adwoa, thanks for giving people that vim. People like I'll do it once in my lifetime, but I so it's been an honor, Adwoa. I was a bit nervous coming onto this call because most of the people I've spoken with, I know them already or we've had chats on the side, but I'm so honored, so blessed to have heard, and I'm glad our viewers have too. Thanks for giving us the vim to plan as well, not to do what you did. And thanks for sharing your story. I'm sure somebody listening today will one day look back and say, when I watched this video, career meet Adwoa, a career breaker, when I listened to this podcast, this is what really made a big difference and gave me the vim to do what I needed to do, whether it be stay on, reflect, and albeit go on a break and reflect. I mean, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So much.
I'm
So,
happy I could share
guys,
the story as well.
thanks everyone. We can't wait to bring you another session of Meet a Career Breaker and all the other things we have planned for Career Break Exchange. Adwoa, maybe one day we'll have you back to unpack some of the things that you just came to offload on us. It's been
I'll be
an
happy to
amazing
share a bit
one.
more. Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, and thank you.